that intro music was just something that I came up with really quickly. Just laid down a drum track, had a kind of genre in mind, I guess, or just a feeling that I had today, and yeah, just used my experience to come up with something that felt appropriate. It just so happens that from a genre standpoint, it's like a kind of dark psychedelic rock kind of feel, right? And that's kind of like the subject of the video, is that I haven't sat down, decided that I'm going to write a psychedelic rock song, haven't gone through like my book of how to write a psychedelic rock song instructions. I've just played some music. Now, it's often said that music is a language, and if that's actually the case, like, why are we teaching it in such a wildly different way to how we learn languages? Now, we've all learned a language for the most part, and when you learn your primary language as a baby, as a child, you do it through immersion. You do it through listening to your parents, listening to significant other people in your life, and trying to mimic those people. You start with knowing no words. You start with learning the words for certain things, associating, chair, food, these sorts of things, and then when you first start talking, you're really bad at it. You listen to a baby talk or a toddler talk, and like, you can't understand what they're saying, but the parents often can, because they've been, in this journey with them, and they can they've associated the sounds that the child is making with other, with the words that they'll eventually be able to hopefully do. Secondary language learning, for the most part, has been, in my opinion, done badly. Been approached from the opposite end, learning words, fine, but then learning grammar and how to structure sentences, and leading you to not really being very good at a language. So I know maybe 700 Japanese words. I can read them, I can pronounce them, and I can't speak a lick of Japanese. Like, if you put me in a room with a Japanese person, I could maybe hold a 30-second conversation, if that. I haven't been immersed in Japanese. I haven't been learning the language in that way that we learn our primary language, and I think that's really the way that languages need to be taught, including the language of music. I think that the biggest component in learning a language is listening, and the second is then trying to mimic. I think that by listening, we're building up this experience. I've talked about experience in other videos before. We build up this experience of certain languages, and I think that genres of music can be split into, what a different language is. So psychedelic rock, or rock in general, is one language. Jazz, bebop specifically, would be like its own language, with very specific things that make it bebop. And I think that in order to do this stuff, in order to be fluent in these things, you need to have listened to a lot, you need to have tried to copy a lot, and you need to do it conversationally. So my advice in starting on this journey would just to be listening to the music that you like, which you should already be doing, right? If you're a musician, I assume that you like music. You picked up the instrument in the first place for a reason. I know that a lot of us had instruments thrust on us as kids, recorders for everyone, but a lot of us played brass instruments, woodwind instruments, that sort of thing. But I'm presuming if you've picked up the bass guitar, unless you're coming to it from like cello as a child or upright bass as a child, then you want to play this. You want to be able to express yourself and create music in that way. So listen to the music that you like, and then just try and copy some of it. The best guitarist I know, I won't mention him by name, he spent hours and hours relentlessly copying stuff off of records, just like listening to the record, stopping it, trying to play it, slowing it down. The tools available to us nowadays, YouTube, just being able to slow something down to half speed or 3/4 speed, being able to replay over and over again, that there's no excuse for not being able to kind of chop things down and really being able to dig in. One kind of side note on that, which has always been something that I've thought about. Unless you're in a tribute band, I don't think that doing a cover version and trying to sound like the record is really serving much purpose at all. I think tribute bands, they are what they are, and that's whether you like them or not, a whole discussion. But like, you're trying to be something, you're trying to sound like the particular band. But if you're in a band doing covers, if you're in a function band doing weddings and I don't know, bar mitzvahs, that sort of thing, then inject some of yourself into it. Don't try and learn it note for note. Make it recognisable, make it yours, and that's what a cover version is, in my opinion. I'm not telling you what to do there. So yeah, not trying to get it note for note, just trying to learn it. And like, I think that if you can sing a melody, no matter how badly, if you can hear a phrase of music and you can reproduce that with your voice, then you've got every chance of being able to reproduce it on the instrument. I think that this is where scales come in handy. So if you try to play Happy Birthday, which I've never tried to do, so the C major scale is, so I'd imagine that Happy Birthday Happy Birthday to you, etc. So yeah, knowing the C major scale helped me there, but like, I'm pretty sure you could work it out. And even if you didn't know the scale and you was just trying to do it on one string, like, I'm sure you could just work it out. And that's the sort of thing, I think, like, you listen to something, you like that, you try and play it, and then patterns will appear, patterns will associate with certain sounds. So like the guitar part I played, at some point I must have associated like playing things that are kind of in the E, I don't know what key it was in, E. So like I must have played those three notes together a billion times, and then just add in, which gives it a kind of like dark, minor-y feel. Like if I sat down and worked it out, I probably would know that it's like, some particular mode or other, but it just isn't important. And these thoughts have been brewing with me for a long, long time. And like, I didn't know about language learning, the stuff that I was talking about before. I didn't really know that until a couple of years ago about primary versus secondary language learning. But But since I was a kid, I kind of thought I had this notion that self-taught musicians were doing something, and it was like you're just letting out something that's inside rather than trying to make it fit a different pattern. So that's something that's been there for a while. The language learning thing came along, and then I reread Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and in that book, he's trying to teach a class of students like how to write good stuff. That's not very good English, but how to write well, and he's doing it with these rules, like much like we have in music, right? It's like if you want your music to sound sad, use the minor key and minor scale. If you want to, so like slight tangent, but so I did a songwriting course at Berkeley, and like just got taught all these tricks of like, you need to make you don't need to, but successful records use different number of lines for the verse compared to the chorus. Like you use odd in the chorus and even in the verse, and you use major to minor switches, and just all these rules and tricks and all of that totally get in the way of actually letting out something that you're trying to say. I think that commercialism is one thing, trying to make popular stuff. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I'm going to do a video on commercialism and professionalism and how it might, not be the best thing for you artistically, but like just trying to do things from a set of rules, isn't it? An experience, is it? So in the book, he's trying to teach rhetoric, and he eventually talks about getting the class to judge everyone's work, because everyone understands what quality work is. Like they all read something, and these are students that know really nothing about rhetoric, and he reads a piece of work to them, and they say, yep, that's good, yep, that's bad. They might not be able to tell you why it's good or why it's bad, but they know it, and this notion of quality comes out of this, and he goes into some quite kind of esoteric thoughts about that. But just you knowing whether something's good or not to you is the key. So if you've listened to like a bunch of psychedelic rock, and you and some of your friends get together and start making music, it might not sound like psychedelic rock. It might just sound like you guys. But if you're happy with how it sounds, you think that it's of sufficient quality, you've succeeded. Like you've made music, you've said something that you had to say, and that came out. You've used the language correctly. To make something, to create something, to be artistic. So we hear a lot about musicians not having anything to say, and like I struggled with this one for quite a while. Like, yeah, I know like a bunch of music, I know some songs, I can make music in a bunch of genres, but it's like I haven't got anything to say. I haven't got like a political message I'm trying to get across. I'm not trying to let anyone know how I feel about anything. I'm not trying to write love songs or anything like that. But what I realised is that if I put on a drum loop and I play the bass along to it, that's my message. That's the thing I had to say. Yeah, it's not like I had to get something out, but that's what came out. If you're in a restaurant in a country that speaks a different language to yours, at that moment you've got a need to say something. But just walking along the street, just because you're in a different country, doesn't mean that you just start speaking Spanish or French or whatever the language is. So, yeah, don't get hung up on that, having something to say. If something comes out, you had something to say and you've said it. This has been such a big subject for me for a very long time. I've been thinking for quite a while on how I can get this out in a palatable format. I'm not sure I've quite succeeded yet. I might do subsequent videos on it. I'd love to have a conversation about it with you guys. So if you've got any comments, let me know what you think about this. If you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you like. I'll be doing tons more music videos, bass related, not bass related, some gear videos, that sort of thing. I'll see you in the next one.